Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington on Monday, March 28th, 2022. This is Live Talk. I am Gibbs, Dube.
And I'm Marvellous Mhlanga Nyahuye, broadcasting from my home in Washington, D.C., due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Tonight on Live Talk, we are talking about Zimbabwe's just ended by-elections and other issues.
The Citizens Coalition for Change won with a landslide margin in the just ended council and parliamentary by-elections. It lost at least 2 seats where the party was expected to romp to victory.
Most Zimbabweans say the by-election was marked by a low turnout in most parts of the country. At the same time, the MDC alliance led by Douglas Monzora failed to get a single vote in some polling stations where it had deployed polling agents. Now the MDC Alliance Secretariat wants Monzora to go.
The Secretariat coordinator of the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance, Marakia Bomani, said the political group Secretariat has recommended the suspension of its leader, Douglas Monzora, following their dismissal by performance in the just ended council and parliamentary by-elections.
Bomani, who is the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe People First, elect by Agrippa Mutambara, told VOA Zimbabwe Service that Monzora also allegedly violated some provisions of the MDC Alliance agreement signed by the Alliance's principals.
Meanwhile, the CCC supporters are celebrating their victory nationwide, and we also saw Douglas Monzora having a press conference in Harare today.
Yebo kambe mahlaba ezulu linjani lapha likhona endaweni zonke zomhlaba ezijiyeneyo ulive talk lamhla sikhuluma ke ngokhetho lwama-by elections olusanda kwenziwa kwele Zimbabwe. Khetho lolu luqhutshwe ngomgqibelo. Siyabona ke impumela yankhona ukuthi kuphume ngendlela abanye abantu kade bekukhangelele, kuthi njalo abanye bengakhangelelanga konke lokhu ngoba kukhanya ibandla likaMonzora likhe phansi lokunye okumangalisayo. Kwezinye indawo lapho kade kumele lithole khona ivoti eyodwa belingatholi lutho, lokhanya kulohlupho olunye olumangalisayo. So singazi ukuthi ibandla leli liyangaphi kusuka khona mpa nxa sikhuluma. Nxa sisikhangela ke Marvellous, i-Citizens Coalition for Change kukhanya selibuthile endaweni eziningi. So libutha nje lithi lisebenzile ebantwini njalo lisebenzela uZulu ngoba libandla likaZulu. So singathi ke selithole amasitsi amaningi kakhulu. So kube sekusithi la kuma-council lapha lenze njalo, kodwa ke e-Epworth le Mtasa South ungazana litholanga lutho khona ngale. So sifuna ukuzwa ukuthi abantu bathini ngakho konke lokho. So siyezwa ke khonapha nxa kukhulunywa njalo abanye sebefuna uMonzora atshaye phansi. Simzwile la ekhuluma namhla sithi abazanga kuhle, kodwa akula muntu ongamxotsha ukuthi abe nguye okhokhela i-MDC Alliance. So kunjalo ke Marvellous, siyaphambili sizwe ukuthi abantu bathini. Ngena khona Marvellous.
Aiwa, tinokuchingamidza ine mufaro pano pachirongwa chedu che-Live Talk nemusi wemuvhuro Monday 28th, apo tiri kutarisa isu zvakawanikwa zvichibuda musarudzo yema-by-elections atakaona achiitika munyika nemusi wemugovera. Pari zvino tinoona kuti bato reCitizens Coalition for Change rinotungamirwa navaNelson Chamisa ndo rakawanikwa iro richitora atingati zvigaro zvemukanzuru nemuparamende kunzvimbo idzo dzakange dzakadzingwa vamwe vemuparamende nevamutungamiri webato reMDCT kana kuti Alliance vaDouglas Monzora. Taona zvakare iro bato reMDC Alliance vachitaurawo kuti vanga vari kuda kuti vaMonzora vabve pachigaro, asi tikazoona vaMonzora nhasi vachitaura nevatori venhau vachiti ivo ndo vachiri panyanga, uye vachiti zvinooneka munyaya zvakadai sebhora kuti unogona kupotsa kana pena, tichitarisa kuti ivo bato reMDC Alliance mune dzimwe nzvimbo vakawanikwa vasina kana mavhoti, uyezve pari zvino hapana kana chigaro chavakawana mukanzuru kana muparamende. Toona kuti bato reCitizens Coalition for Change ndo rakawanikwa richitora zvigaro zvakawanda munzvimbo dzakawanda. Tikaonawo Zanu PF ichikwanisawo kutora zvimwe zvigaro zvanga zviri zveCitizens Coalition for Change kana kuti MDCT isati yachinja zita. Takaona kunzvimbo yeEpworth neMutasa South zvichienda kuZanu PF, asi tichange tiri kutarisa ipo pano kuti zvii zvakaitika munyaya iyoyi yema-by-elections. Vamwe vanga vari kuchema kuti sangano reZEC harina kunyatsofambisa zvinhu zvakanaka, uyezve vamwe vachichemawo zvakare kuti panga paine mhirizhonga nekutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu vanhu vasati vapinda mumaby-elections aya. Saka ndo zvatichange tiri kukurukura nevamwe nyanzvi dzezvematongerwo enyika, uyezve tichinzwa zvakare kune mutungamiri weCCC vawanikwawo vachitaura nevatori venhau nhasi pamusoro pemafambiro akaita sarudzo idzi.
Sike sizwe-ke uChamisa khuluma khona manje khona ngale eHarare. Bekhuluma-ke le ntatheli zindaba esigqaja sibino ngokuthi hayi basebenzile. Ake simuzwe lapha Marvellous.
Only 2 months old, the yellow baby. But guess what? We have managed to defeat a party formed in 1963, another one formed in 1999. And what we have now is 19 seats out of the contested 28. A resounding victory, an emphatic and landslide show by the citizens of Zimbabwe. We want to thank all the citizens who have shown us that from nothing we are now at number 90. Had it not been for rigging and other shenanigans that we saw, particularly in the countryside, we'd be talking of almost 26 out of 28. But tell you what, the citizens are very clear. They've made a bold statement and we're excited against all odds. You know that with a lot of challenges, there was violence. We even lost one of our members, Nyahuye. Some of our supporters were beaten. Matsibaba is a case in point, arrested. And many others were injured in Harare, in Kwekwe, and in the various parts of our country. One of our candidates in Mashonaland Central, their homestead destroyed. We had problems with the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission around the issue of the voters' roll. We still have those problems. Yes, we have had a landslide, but that does not move away from the fact that the elections in this country need fundamental reforms around the voters' roll, the credibility of the voters' roll, around the issues of making sure that results are managed in a better way. Polling stations are not subjected to the violence, intimidation that we have seen. Zanu PF people do not believe in a free vote. They do not believe in the liberation agenda. They do not believe that citizens have the right to demonstrate their will and express themselves in a free and fair election. That's why they are abusing our traditional leaders, where the case in Mtasa and other rural areas, on the farming areas, people are told that if you exercise your right to vote, you are inviting hazard, risk, and loss of life. That's not what the liberation struggle was for. It was one man, one woman, one vote.
Yeah, that is Mr. Nelson Chamisa. Uyakhuluma khonapho sibili ukuthi hayi banqobile and banqobe lokana sibili okunye okumangalisayo ngesikhathi ebala i-statement sakhe lesimarvelous ube sithi bale 19 asebezitholile, so singazi ukuthi khona manje sokume njani, kodwa ke ababonayo bathi ungani sesikhuphukile ama-seats lawa angani sekhuphukile. So sizathi ukuthi silokho esiqhubekela phambili sisizwa ukuthi ukuhamba njani. So Marvellous ungangena khonapho ke khulume ngoChamisa.
Aiwa apo tanga tiri kunzwa mutungamiri webato reCitizens Coalition for Change nhasi vanga vari kutaura vaine vatori venhau vachitaura ivo kuti pane masits avakawanikwa ivo vachirwisa vamwe vemamwe mapato vakakwanisa kuwana masits 19 kubva pamasits 28 anga aripo, asi vari kuti ivo semaonero avo vari kuona kuti mune dzimwe nzvimbo nyanya kumaruva vamwe vanhu vanga vari kutyisidzirwa uyezve vachiudzwa kunzi vakavhotera bato ravo reCCC vanga vasingazogare zvakanaka kunzvimbo izvozvi. Vakati zvakare vanga vasiri kufara nemafambisirwo akaitwa basa nesangano reZEC. Asi regai tienderere mberi tichimbonzwa zvakare kuna Douglas Monzora veMDCT.
Yes, sike sizwe ke ukuthi uDouglas Monzora yena uthini ngokhetho lo.
The Zimbabwe Election Commission announced the official results in respect of the by-elections that were held on the 26th of March. What is clear from the result of these elections is that the MDCT and the MDC alliance did not do well in these elections. Obviously, one way or the other, we did not get our act together. We also note that these by-elections were some of the most apathetic in Zimbabwe's post-independence history. It is clear that by not turning up to vote, the majority of the Zimbabwean electorate are communicating a clear message to the political leadership of the country. This message is underpinned by the growing disillusionment of the electorate in elections under the current conditions. However, we wish to congratulate those that have emerged victors in these elections, and we hope that we will be able to work together well in Parliament and in Council. Our collective duty is to the Zimbabwean people first and foremost. As the MDC Alliance, we respect the wishes of the electorate as expressed in these by-elections. What remains very clear to us is the need for serious electoral reforms in this country. As the MDCT and the MDC Alliance, we are going back to the drawing board as we make serious preparations for 2023 elections.
Yes, that is Mr. Douglas Monzora. He's talking about the party's performance. Marvellous, uti sebeyabuyela ku-drawing board ngoba zimbi indaba. So ungani kumchaye esifubeni sibile ukuthi kachanga kuhle lapha Marvellous. Uthi bayahlekile sibe.
Apo tiri kunzwa vaDouglas Monzora vakamirira ivo bato reMDCT zvakare nebato reMDC Alliance vachiti ivo semaonero avo vakuchidzokera kudrawing board kana kuti kugara pasi vonyatsoona kuti vofambisa sei zvinhu. Vati vakutotanga ivo kugadzirira sarudzo dzemutungamiri wenyika dzemuna 2023. Vati ivo pari zvino vada kuti vaone paine kurandudzwa kwemitemo yavari kutaura kuti ma-electoral reforms ndo avari kunyanyoda kuona kuti achagadziridzwa sarudzo idzi muna 2023 dzisati dzasvika. Asi ndaona kuri kuno kuAmerica taiti Gibbs would call this a concession speech because we saw him there saying that he is willing to work with and congratulated those that did win and said that he hopes that they will be able to work cordially with those that won, but I'm not sure where they'll be working because I don't think his party got any seats in either the council or parliament. Saka apo vaMonzora vari kuti ivo vari kuwanikwa vachikorokotedza avo vakawanikwa vachiwina musarudzo dzichangopfuura, vakati ivo vanofarira kuti vachazoshanda zvakanaka neavo vakawanikwa vachikunda musarudzo iyi.
But the Secretariat Coordinator of the MDC Alliance, Marakia Bomani, says the political group secretariat has recommended the suspension of Douglas Monzora following that dismal performance in the just ended council and parliamentary by-elections. So Bomani Marvellous is the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe People First, led by Agrippa Mutambara. So he told Studio 7 that there is a lot that Monzora did, which was not quite right. So he says he was campaigning alone. He was not even involving other people. So let's hear Bomani talking about this issue and others.
If we had run an effective and a well-organized campaign, we would have given Zanu PF and CC a run for their money. But obviously, when a campaign is being mismanaged and the organization, so the organizing team is basically sleeping on the job, this is what you get. We are not happy that we got 0 at certain polling stations. You know, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable. And then the other issue that we have is on the 5th of January 2021, the Composite Political Corporations Agreement was amended. On that amendment, there was a section which provides that there will be a budget set for alliance activities. Okay, so this is what happens. On that budget, it will be used to further alliance interest. The alliance left almost 8.8 million in the position, in MDCT's coffers. That money disappeared, was never accounted for. And sometimes would have principals being asked to travel as far as Buruwayo, as far as Marondera, with no funding. They would be left there stranded. So we are of the view that MDC T and MDC leadership, you know, they're in violation of these clauses. These are the foundations of a functioning alliance. So if you breach those things, we don't think President Monzora is competent enough to lead us into 2023. But however, as the Secretariat, we have no mandate as to, you know, fire him. We have left that, you know, responsibility with the principals. It is up to them to make the final decision. But this is our recommendation, and we feel in order to allow investigation to be thoroughly, you know, carried out, we think President Monzora should be suspended as the MDC alliance leader.
There you are, Marvellous. So the guy is not happy at all. He says Monzora should be suspended because they are very much embarrassed. They're saying, how come you go for an election, but you get zero in a polling station where you have some representatives of the party? So which means they didn't even vote for their own party. So he's saying there should be some investigation here.
Yes, Gibbs, it's very surprising because in that file footage that we were seeing, it seemed as if there were a lot of people there, but does it mean they didn't go to vote? Or, you know, the results are indicating something else, but it's interesting what he is alleging. Apo tanga tiri kunzwa vamwe vebato iro rine MDC Alliance vanowanikwa ivo vari muSecretariat vachitaura ivo kuti semaonero avo vari kupa ivo recommendation yekuti vaDouglas Monzora vasawanikwe vachiramba vari mutungamiri wegungano iri reMDC Alliance vachitaura nyaya dzekuti kunyange tisati taziva kuti pane umbowo here. Vari kutaura ivo kuti pane nyaya dzemari dzisina kufambiswa zvakanaka zvanga zviri kuitwa navaMonzora zvavasiri kufara nazvo, asi hatina kukwanisa kunzwawo divi ravaMonzora kuti vari kuti chii panyaya yemari idzi dzavari kupomerwa kuti dzanga dziri muhomwe yegungano reMDC Alliance. Asi taona vaMonzora nhasi papress conference iyi vachitaura vakamirira MDC Alliance. Saka ticharamba tichiona kuti chii chichabuda panyaya iyi mukuenda mberi kwatinenge tiri kuita.
Yes, Monzora actually talked about this issue, you know, at a press conference, and he was saying basically that you know, this guy, they don't know him. He's in the Secretariat, yes, but he doesn't have any stamina to say anything about you know, what he's supposed to do. Maybe let's try this here.
The letter you are talking about was apparently written by Mr. Omani, who is Secretary General of the Zimbabwe People's First. We suspect that the letter is fake because Mr. Omani is not even in the country. We have phoned around and no one seems to know anything about it, and we think that the letter is fake, and we know that for the alliance, there are two important organs that sit to make decisions like the one that is being referred to in the letter. We have the liaison committee, which is a committee of all the Secretary Generals of the alliance. It is a committee that is chaired by us, by Senator Kovic. That is chaired, Senator Kovic. That committee did not sit, and then the committee of the alliance principals is scheduled to sit this week. Those are the two committees that can deal with issues like that. So we suspect that it was somebody who is just up to mischief and so on. It's not an official letter at all.
So there you are, Marvellous. So he says that the first letter that was written was fake, according to him. So he says, you know what, even Pomani doesn't have any stamina to suspend or do some of these things, you know. So that's Monzora's response. So ucho njalo ke Monzora lapha uthi hayibo laba bathi kona kumele achayi phansi ngabantu ke abazikhulumelayo nje bachitha isikhathi akulanto enjalo ezayenzakala. So kunjalo ke Marvellous nxa sikhuluma ngodaba lo.
aiwapo tanzwa vamonzora vabva vazopindura ipo pamusangano waitwa nhasi vachitaura ivo kuti aiwa tsamba iri kunzi yakanyorwa ivo vaitawo kuferefeta kwavaita vakatoona kuti munhu ari kutaurwa uyu haanyatsozikanwa uyezve sekuona kwavo nematauro avari kuita vari kuti tsamba iyi inogona kunge iri yemanyepo uyezve pari zvino ivo vacharamba vachienderera mberi vari mutungamiri weMDC Alliance.
Yes, and let's put it on record that we actually interviewed Pomani himself, and he said, you know, he stuck to his words and said he wrote that letter and he's in the secretariat of the MDC Alliance. So let's give this opportunity now to the owners of the show, Marvellous, and that's the listeners. So let's hear what they're saying about, you know, some of the things that came out of the by-elections.
Asitapiwa umwe mkana kuti tani umiriri mutsva vakasarudzwa 2018 akadzingwa nekuda kwehurumende yeZanu PF, but izvozvi tine rombo rakanaka kuti tadzoka futi muofisi. Basa redu tichashanda tichimirira zvido zvenyu, tichimirira wagari kuti wange waine ugaro hwakanaka wa 17.
Vakaratidza ruvimbo kwatiri. Ndoda kutenda the leadership yangu inotungamirwa naPresident Chamisa nekuratidza chivimbo mandiri. Chinhu chihombe chatinokoshesa ndechekusimudzira vanhu vechikangadanga mvura tichisenza pamwe chete navo, kuchema nyaya dzavo kuparliament, kutaura matambudziko etinawo senyika kubudikidza ngekudzvanyirwa kwetiri kuita ngehurumende yaED Mhlanga, kuti chii chatingaita seCCC kuti vanhu vaende paupenyu huri nani kupfuura zvauri nhasi, tichitungamirirwa in the new yellow movement inotungamirirwa naPresident Nelson Chamisa. Ndoda kutenda vanhu vechikangadanga mvura, ndoda kutenda the leadership yeCCC, ndoda kutenda the leadership of the president yaPresident Nelson Chamisa.
Sanibonani, siyabonga mthokazi omuhle ngemini enhle leyi bakithi ngukhansela elect ka-Ward 9 eMpophoma. Sithanda ukubonga bakithi abahlali beMpophoma, the senior citizens abempophoma, the Transport Operators Park Association, Community Action Team, Vendors, Old Timers Association, and the citizens in general abaphakathi komuzi, abafundisi bethu bakithi, for playing a pivotal role in supporting us and guiding us. Sikwanisile ukuthi sithole 1,671 votes phakathi komuzi against iZanu PF ethole 605. And thina we dedicate this victory to abantu beMpophoma ngoba yinto yabanikazi, yinto kaMthokazi bakithi. Siyabonga Mpophoma enhle, siyabonga Mthokazi omuhle. Sithi umsebenzi uqalisa namhlanje. Thina sikhona njengokukhokhela umfakileyo ukuthi sibe yizigijimi and sibe yizigijimi zenu and sizagijima sisebenze sithuthukise Impophoma phambili. Ngiyabonga. God bless you. Ngiyabonga. God bless you.
Yeah, Marvellous, you heard there from one of the people that was elected. You know, he's a councillor for Pophoma. He's a very happy man. You know, he's in now and he's saying, well, thank you, Pophoma, you know.
Aiwapo tanga tiri kunzwa kune vamwe vakawanikwa ivo vachikunda musarudzo dzichangobva kuitwa vachitaura ivo kuti vari kutenda vanhu vakavavhotera. Tanga tiri kutonzwa vamwe vanga vari kuridza dziyo dzemapato avo akasiyana siyana. Taona vekwamutare vanga vari kufarawo vachiimba vachifarira bato ravo reCitizens Coalition for Change, vachitaurawo zvavachange vari kuti ivo vari kuvimbisa kuitira vanhu vakavavhotera.
Yes, we are now joined by some of our guests this evening. We've got Mr. Tawanda Dzokora of CCC. I can't see his smile, but I can see his yellow chest, but it's not, now he's smiling. So why are you smiling, Mr. Dzokora? I think there's something there, right?
I'm smiling because I'm happy.
I can tell. So tell us about the outcome of the elections. What do you think?
Yes, thank you very much. I must start by thanking the people of Zimbabwe for turning out in their thousands and voting overwhelmingly for CCC. It is a fact that out of the thousands of people that turned out, more people voted for CCC and few people voted for ZANU-PF and other political parties. The evidence is there. It is in the numbers. We won 19 out of 28 National Assembly seats or parliamentary seats, and we also won 75 seats out of 123 council wards. That's an overwhelming win. In fact, this election was dubbed a mini general election, and we can safely and confidently say that Triple C won this mini general election. And again, I want to thank the people that turned out. But of course, we must also mention that we succeeded. We won all these seats against the background of voter intimidation. You know, the playing field is never leveled by ZANU-PF or by the government or by ZEC itself. You know that we're supposed to address a rally in Binga North. It was banned in Chitungwiza, in Marondera, in many places where we're supposed to gather. We're not allowed to gather. Where we gathered, sometimes our rallies were disrupted. And we should also know that we went into this by-election not even having been allowed to be on ZBC or on ZTV like ZANU-PF was doing. ZANU-PF was campaigning on the ground. They were campaigning on radio. They were campaigning on TV, but they still lost this election. And I should also mention cases of voter intimidation that happened in my own background, in my own rural home in Wedza, where people were being intimidated. The voter turnout in Wedza was about 25%, you know, which means a lot of people that were registered to vote did not turn out to vote because they were intimidated. There were 8 cars of ZANU-PF that were roving around that ward in Wedza, moving around, intimidating people, telling people that they are seeing those that are going to vote, and if ZANU-PF doesn't win, they will be visiting them. So that's a voter intimidation, and it should not be tolerated anyway. But despite all that, despite all the shenanigans by ZANU-PF, and despite also coming from the background of a party that had been written off, not even written off. This is a party that was destroyed by ZANU-PF in Monzora shenanigans to the extent that we started another party, a new party. So this was a 2-month-old party that managed to wrestle all those seats from an established 60 or 50-something-year-old party, ZANU-PF. This was this is unprecedented, and a lot of people had actually written off President Chamisa. ZANU-PF itself had thought that they had buried President Chamisa, they had buried Triple C, but that was proved to be wrong, because President Chamisa is with the people of Zimbabwe. He is in the people of Zimbabwe. He represents the people of Zimbabwe. The people of Zimbabwe came in their thousands and supported him and supported Triple C romping to victory on Saturday.
So I think we can go to Dr. Mavaza, and then we'll go back to Dzokora and others. So Marvellous, go ahead.
Tomboenda kuna Dr. Mavaza, imi munoona sei mafambiro akaita sarudzo idzi? Tiri kunzwa vaDzokora vari kuti aiwa ivo bato ravo ndiro rakakunda, uyezve panga paine zvatingati kutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu panguva yegadziriro yekuti vapinde musarudzo idzi, asi vakawanikwa vachikunda bato renyu reZANU-PF.
Mavaza, I think you've got a slight challenge with your microphone. Maybe can you hear me? Because we can't hear you. Can you cut and come back shortly? Then we can cut and come back. So then we can discuss with you. I think we've got a challenge there. So we've got Mtutu Zimoyo right now. I think he has joined us. Mtutu Zimoyo, can you hear me, sir? I think his phone cut off. And we've got Professor Elliot Masocha. I think I can see him, but I think I can only see part of his body somehow. Okay, now I can see his hand. Professor Masocha, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Do you hear me well?
Yes, very well. Very well. So, Marvellous, go ahead.
Hey, Professor, tinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa.
Maita basa.
Tinoona kuti Zimbabwe ichangobva kupinda yatingati by election, uyezve takaona paine mapato anopikisa akapinda, tikaona zvakare paine rimwe bato idzva reCitizens Coalition rakawanikwa richipinda by elections aya. Tikazoona pane Zanu PF yagara iripo. Imi munoona sei mafambiro akaita by election iyi?
Ndinoona sokuti my election rwendo runo violence yakandoita shoma asi yanga iriko savanhu vagara vana mitiro hwavo. Takazviona zvichiitika, vamwe vanenge vachitenga mavhotsi, vamwe vanenge vari kuvhundusira sokutaurwa kwaitwa uchangobva kutaura, asi ndichinatsokuongorora mafambiro akaita kuvhota kwakaitwa apa, hatidi kuti pati dzizvinyepere dzichiti takakunda takadai. Ndoda kukumbira kuti pati dzacho dzitarise vanhu vakambodzivhotera makore apfuura ayo kuti mavhotsi ava ari kuwanda here. Zvekare maonero andoita sarudzo idzi dzinenge dzokuita sokuti dziri pakati pema-MDC formations against CCC, kupemberera kwavanoita. Vane zvigaro here zvimwe zvavakatora kuZanu PF zvavangadero vachipembera. Zvekare ndinoona kuti kurukwidzana kuri kuita masimba opposition, kuri kuita kunge kuri kusimbisa Zanu PF ichikwanisa kutora zvimwe zvigaro zvanga zviri kuma-MDC. Saka ngatipaongorore ipapo kana tichida kuti Zimbabwe kunge muine utongi hwejechetere hwedhemokirasi, kuti ngatirege kuvhundusirana, ngatirege kutengesarana mavhotsi, asi sokuziva kwedu vanhu vomuZimbabwe vajaira kupuwa zvinhu nguva dzamavhotsi. Takaona hedu kuti vanhu vokumasvingo vanenge vakaratidza kuti nyange ukapa munhu zvinhu kana tisingakuda hatikudi, sokuhwina kwakaita weCCC weZanu PF businessman achinge akusha zvinhu zvose zvakazara achipa vanhu achiita zvaanoita, asi wakangoruza chete. Ndiko kukura kwatinoda musarudzo dzenyika yedu yeZimbabwe, kuti vanhu vasatengana. Kana usingadiwi haudiwi. Kutonga hakusi kwekuti ndine mari, asi kuti chii chaunenge wakamiririra iwe pachako chaunozoda kuitira vanhu.
Maybe if you can just say the same thing in English, that what's your take on the just ended by-elections in Zimbabwe? We saw a lot of people were criticizing the low turnout of the voters.
Yeah, as I said before, we always see a lot of people filling stadiums. We always see a lot of people registering to vote. But the question is on actual voting. And I don't know if Zimbabweans really understand that, only registering to vote, only attending the rally, it doesn't mean the candidates have already won. There was low turnout, of course, maybe because of intimidation, because of other things that we may have had, just giving up. Some people just give up and say, well, even if I don't vote, so and so is going to get in. But I have seen some maturity, of course, in the voters of Masvingo, where I come from, where some people have been, vote buying, but at the end of the day, they lost anyway to an unknown carpenter in Masvingo. And that person should be given a round of applause by every one of us, that you don't need to buy voters. Okay? You just need to be known as somebody who is going to do things for people, for your people, and never be interested in terms of money. And then one observation I saw is that, the celebration that CCC is doing for, having won a number of elections, I think it's too early for them really to be happy that way, because they haven't even gained much or anything from the ruling Zanu PF. Actually, Zanu PF, gained 2 seats from MDC. With how many they are, I don't know. So if they can dig in, rural voters, if they can unite as well, that's one thing I want to see. I want to see them uniting and form a united opposition front. Forget about your profession as lawyers who argue in court. Don't get that all into politics. Unite and move on as one united party against Zanu PF. If Zanu PF does not deserve to win, the electorate is going to see that.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Mr. Dr. Mavaza. Welcome to the show, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Thank you. I was hearing you before.
Yes, so couldn't hear you, unfortunately. So, but go ahead.
That's good. You see, there is a point here. I agree to an extent with the last speaker, but the issue we need to look at is that let's assume that the by-elections were free and fair. Yes, because they were free and fair. But let's look at CCC, Triple C. They've won in their usual strongholds. They did not win anywhere new. They have not done. They have not put their campaign any further than where they'd already won. Remember, we were contesting the seats which were already taken by CCC under the name MDC before. These seats were belonging to the opposition. All the seats which were belonging to ZANU-PF were only 7, and we got them back. And then the other 2 seats we gained from the Triple C. CCC has won its usual urban areas. That is, out of the 28 contested seats, they won 19. And if you look at that, ZANU-PF has won 9 seats. And out of the 7 they're contesting, or they wanted to get back, they got back plus 2 extra. So in the 9 constituencies won by ZANU-PF, the figures of people we got, rather the cumulative number of voters, it was about 76,355,000 in the same 9 constituencies won by ZANU-PF, while CCC won 24,000 votes in the 9 constituencies which ZANU-PF is won, which means the majority of people there voted for ZANU-PF. Right now, let's look again at the other constituencies which CCC has won. ZANU-PF has gained a lot of voters in those areas. We actually won Epworth, which was opposition from the time opposition started campaigning. That is from 2002 up to today. It has always been for opposition. We got it. This shows the trend of voters. Well, let's look at St. Mary's, which Job Scala had enjoyed for some time. We have won a significant number of voters have changed. It has swung the numbers. We gained over 24,000 extra voters from those areas. So if you look at it, when we are now coming to presidential elections, our numbers are high. It is a shame that we have people like Seguru Dzokora and other CCC guys celebrating the beds which were already in their bag. Those was already theirs. There's nothing to celebrate. They were supposed to be getting every seat which was available. Unfortunately, or fortunately for us, but unfortunately for most of us, Douglas Monzora had recalled another 16 people or 17 councillors, which will again have another elections probably if it is 6 months before the general elections, which is really waste of our taxpayers' money, really. But at the end of the day, these elections had shown us a lot of things. They've given us an insight of what we should do. They've told us that we still remain in charge of our rural areas. There was no intimidation, as Dzokora was trying to say. There was no vote buying. We saw voter apathy in towns where MDC or CCC have got the majority. We didn't see that apathy in our rural areas where people have known all along which party to vote for. So if you look at it at the end of the day, you realize that it has been a job well done by the ZANU-PF, and we can assure you that the seats we lost by very few margins in the towns, we are going to claim them during the 2023 elections. We now have to go back again to the drawing board. We do appreciate that, yes, our aim when we entered into these by-elections was to win each and every seat on offer. But unfortunately, Triple C did win. Do not be lied to that Triple C is a new party which is 2 months old. No, this is a party which is as old as when Tsvangirai formed it. It only changed its name. They've been changing their names several times, from MDC A, B, C, D to Z. Now Triple C will be seeing Triple C, A, B, C, D. They'll be changing sooner each time. But yes, the opposition claimed back their seats and lost two. So that's shame on them. But to conclude in short, or rather to put it in shorter, we will simply say, hakuna kupemberera kungaitwa nevanopfeka zvipfumbu kana kuti zveyero kwavangaita. Vakakonewa havana kukwanisa kuwana zvavaifanira kuwana. Tikatarisa vanhu vakasarudza musarudzo iyi, vazhinji vakasarudza Zanu PF. Kumasitsi atakawana anokwana mapfumi, kune ruzhinji rwakawanda kupfuura rwakatisarudza makore apfuura. Vanhu vakawanda vakauya vakabatana neZanu PF. Hongu vetriple C ava vakawanawo zvigaro zvavo zvavakanga vainazvo kare. Hapana chekupemberera, nekuti vari kungopemberera shiri yagara iri munhava mavo. Hakuna chitsva chavaita. Munhu angangotarisa kana bato ringangosimuka rikacheuka rikatawedzera patanga tisina iZanu PF yanga isina zvigaro zviviri zvayawedzera. Tikatarisa kubhinga kwatakarudza nekamajini kadiki diki, patichapinda mu2023 tichanoita basa kubhinga nemamwe nedzimwe nzvimbo dzatakaona kuti MDC ichine simba ikoko kana kuti CCC ichine simba, tichaenda ikoko. Mukupedzisira tida kungotenda wedu kuti vamonzora varatidza kana yatingati maturity pachirungu kuti vabvuma kuti hongu takakundwa, vachagara pasi vonosarudza. Ende tinofara kuti ndo zvatinotarisira kuva mapato eZimbabwe. Isu seZanu PF hatina kukwanisa kukurira kwatakagara tichikurirwa, asi takaedza kutora zviviri zvibodzwa, ticharamba tichizviwedzera. Pachasvika 2023 tiri kuenderera mberi, asi takuenda vana veZimbabwe vakasarudza Zanu PF kuti vamiririre munzvimbo sere pfumbamwe dzatakahwina.
Thank you very much. Now let's talk to Mr. Norest Marara. I think we can see him there.
Yes.
Can you hear us, Mr. Marara?
Murukutinzwa here vaMarara?
Ungu loud and clear.
Alright, aiwa tinofara kuti makwanisa kupinda pachirongwa nekuti pandati imbouya ndafunga kuti muchati aiwa, asi ndafara kuti mauya. Imi muri veMDCT, titsanangurewo kuti manga muri kuvhoterwa kupi, constituency ipi, uyezve kuti makawana mavhoti mangani, nekuti kune dzimwe nzvimbo tiri kunzwa kuti bato renyu rakashaya kana vhoti imwe zvayo.
Ndanga ndiri kumirira Harare Central muguta reHarare, and results akabuda ndakapiwa 65 votes.
Mungati imi pakugadzirira zvanga zviri nyore here, uyezve kuti zvii zvamungati madzidza pasarudzo idzodzi?
Pakugadzirira hungu zvanga zviri nyore because campaign yangu netimu rangu ndo rakanyanya kuva visible paground across the political divide, if I may say. Ndindakaita candidate yekutanga kunamirira maposta angu muguta mukatsvuka chaizvo constituency yese, ende hatina kumira, takaramba tichifamba tichitsvaga rutsigiro. Takaita door to door campaign throughout the constituency, tichitaura nevabereki, and vabereki vaititambira from what we saw on the ground. Tikaita live debates nevaibvuma kuuya, vamwe vairamba vachitiza vachinamira maposta neusiku. So ndingati kampeni yedu yakafamba zvakanaka. Kusara kuti kungoti I was single out Zanu PF in particular, takaita moments akareba vachikwachura posters edu vaibvarura, but takaramba tichinamira zvedu asi vaitibvarurira maposta. So sevanhu vasingade zvekutsvaga muromo navo, takangoramba taingovasiya zvedu tichivaona asi vaitibvarurira maposta, but generally the campaign was okay.
Now, if the campaign was okay, Mr. Marara, how come in some places you are getting only, okay, let me put it this way, you are not getting even a single vote in some polling stations where you had some polling agents? How does that happen? This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yes, ichokwadi tine dzimwe nzvimbo dzasina chatakabuda nadzo ichokwadi ichocho. So it's, I don't know, but I'm attributing this to the low voter turnout, but also I think isusu sebato zvataurwa napresident wedu masikati kwandanga ndiri kwandabva izvozvi. Isusu sebato ndinofunga kuti tanga tisina kugadzirira zvakanyanya sarudzo idzodzidzi asina ndalesi takati toda kudzipinda because ningi patakapatsanurana nevakomana vetriple C vana my brother Nelson Chamisa netimu yavo after the Supreme Court judgment vakati nongedzera kuti ava vanhu vezanu. So isu sebato hatina chatakaita chekutaridza kuti hatisi vanhu vezanu. Asi chandoziva ndechekuti isusu hatisi vanhu vezanu, but I think sebato hatina kushanda zvakasimba kutsanangurira vanhu kuti hatisi bato reMDC harisi rezanu, nokuti hunhu ihwohwe kunongedzerana hwagara huriko. Mukatotarisa kutriple C ikoko two of my vice presidents veko pavakaenda takambova timasiyawo eZANU-PF. Vasikala ndemumwe wavo futi vice chair wekutriple C vakambobuda mumusangano vakanzi iZANU-PF ICIO. So tsika iyo yagara iriko, tinongonongedzerana inyaya yekusvibisana, but I want to blame ourselves and our party kuti tanzi tiri ZANU-PF hatina chatakaita chekutsanangurira vanhu oro kutaridza kuvanhu kuti hatisi ZANU-PF. I also want to clearly state this now because I'm a candidate who has lost this election. Kuti ine hangu pandandichikambena pandaiona kuti paresheka kunyanya kubva kumapurisa, taiona mapurisa kumarondera vaida kurambidza vachamisa kuita rally yavo. I'm one of the leaders vekuMDC vaibuda pachena kuti aiwa mapurisa vanorambidzire vachamisa kuita political gatherings avo. Isusu navachamisa we are all opposition. MDCT or MDC Alliance is not a ZANU-PF appendage, tiri opposition. So ndinofunga kuti isu sebato vamwe vedu, some of our leaders havana kubuda zviri pachena kunongedzera kuZANU-PF, because ZANU-PF ndo iri in power. Ndo yatinofanira kutsura zvakanyanya kuti aiwa ZANU-PF apa muri kuita ma-excesses, muri kutadza zvakati. So isusu sebato utungamiriri hwekwedu ndakaona sokuti hwanga uchinongedzera to our fellow opposition, kutaura zvakanyanya pamusoro pe-fellow opposition other than kutaura my-excesses eZANU-PF and my failures eZANU-PF. Saka for me, this is the reason why we didn't perform well, because in the eyes of the voting public, we are perceived as a ZANU-PF extension, or ZANU-PF light, which I believe is a lie. We are not that. Isusu se opposition. Tinofanira kunongedzera miseve yedu kuZANU-PF kuti ZANU-PF muri kutadza. So that vanhu vanovhota vagutsikane kuti zveshuwa zvinotaurwa nevamwe vedu vanotinongedzera vai kuti muri ZANU-PF extension hazvisi, kuti we are not a ZANU-PF project. I think ndo pakafira tsoro yedu kuti vatungamiriri vedu vamwe nevari kumusoro vaiti vakawana mukana vanotaura pamusoro pavachamisa who is a fellow opposition instead of talking about ningi ZANU-PF. And I think this is where we lost it. In a candidate, I ran the best campaign. I don't think any other candidate akarana campaign yangu. I had a manifesto. I still have a manifesto, which is very intelligent.
Thank you very much, and stay on the line. Very incisive kind of things there. Mr. Dzokora, maybe you can chip in there, because Mr. Marara claims that you guys, you called them ZANU-PF light, MDC T and MDC Alliance. So he says maybe that's why they were getting zeros in some polling stations, because you called them names. If somebody calls you something that you're not, maybe it sticks at times, So go ahead, sir.
I will not even respond to that. They know what they did. This is what I was talking about. That as a Triple C, we lost our headquarters. We lost our finances from the political fund, and they were taken by Monzora. So we are a political party that went into these elections with no headquarters, with not even a single cent. And I must thank the people of Zimbabwe because this CCC campaign was fully funded by the citizens. It was funded by the people of Zimbabwe. And we want to thank them so much for that. This is the reason why we celebrate. This is the reason why we claim, not claim, we actually say we won this mini general election. Because with Monzora and Zanu-PF coming together, colluding and almost rendering our party non-existent, and even some people, some political commentators declaring that President Chamisa and CCC were dead. We rose from that assumed death and we fought our way up with the help of the citizens and managed to win 19 out of 28 seats and also won 75 out of the available 123 ward councils. To us, that's an achievement. But of course, we do not over-celebrate because we know the work at hand. We know the bigger prize. The bigger prize is 2023, and we are already preparing for that. But I must also mention the issue of low voter turnout that Dr. Mavaza was referring to. Generally, that's what happens with by-elections. Not many people turn up, but also we know that there is a lot of voter apathy, and that voter apathy is sponsored by ZEC, by Zanu-PF. If you by ZEC's own admission, you go to their website, they are supposed to be doing voter education throughout the years. They don't have to wait until the 11th hour when we're about to have elections. But since when you are your VOA, have you ever seen any advert from ZEC talking about voter education, encouraging Zimbabweans to go and vote? They only fly 1 or 2 adverts a few days or a few months before election. They have a responsibility to educate Zimbabweans so that Zimbabweans can understand and know the importance of voting. But they deliberately don't do that. They deliberately want to support voter apathy. They don't want as many people to show up, to turn up, to go to vote, because they know that Zanu-PF will not be able to rig. If people turn up in their thousands, in their millions, it will be very difficult for Zanu-PF to rig elections. Therefore, as a party and as citizens, we are going to embark on a campaign to ensure that every Zimbabwean understands and know the importance of registering to vote and also showing up to vote on the day of voting. We are on our own. We don't have a government that takes care of its people. We don't have a government that wants to educate people on their voting rights. So we have to do it on our own as citizens. Even us here in the diaspora, let's keep talking to our relatives, to our friends, to our colleagues in Zimbabwe to ensure that they go and vote. Now we are faced with the April election blitz, election voter registration blitz. Let's talk to our relatives so that they go and register en masse. Because if we don't do it, Zanu-PF or the government is never going to do it.
Thank you.
Don't want to see many people showing up at the voting polls.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dzokora. So let's turn to Professor Elliot Masocha. Your analysis after we had all this, just briefly, because we're coming to the end of the show.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to respond mostly to the one who just talked right now, talking about voter education and blaming this and that and that and that. You know, that has always been, you know, the politics of Zimbabwe, where we blame someone else and we want to paint ourselves as very clean. Voter education should be a responsibility of all of us. Okay. All of us should be responsible. All of us should show that the blame of lack of voter education. And by the time voter education is introduced by the government, you know, close to elections, it's too late. Can't we educate our kids from primary school, secondary school, you know, everything about voter education, so that when we get close to elections or within elections, everybody will know his or her own responsibility in terms of you know, the importance of voting. Because that's an inalienable human right. And again, I have heard a lot, you know, I think somebody from Zanu-PF saying there was no vote buying. I wonder why. You know, he is saying that when there is clear evidence that we see on social media, people, you know, giving goods and all sorts of things, voter buying was there. Let's accept, you know, what did not go wrong. intimidation was there, if evidence is there, we cannot run away from blame. And I'm sorry about that, because I've heard somebody say, well, there was no voter intimidation. It was there. There was no voter buying. It was there. We saw it, no matter how much small it was, but it was there. Let's accept it. Okay. And then the opposition is always blaming ZANU-PF. I want the opposition to learn this. Okay. Blame yourselves that you are not united. Okay. You are never going to beat ZANU-PF when you are splitting every time towards elections. Okay. You can, distance yourself from ZANU-PF as much as you can, but you are getting smaller and smaller by splitting every time. So be honest with yourselves and stop calling each other names like what we have heard some of your candidates calling this and that, bad names. What do you think our kids are going to learn from us as they grow up to be voters like us? Let's run elections in a very nice way, in a very respectable way, and all of us, let's be educators to educate the electorate, especially our kids. We should not go far. Let's educate our kids right in our homes the importance of voting, so that when they grow up, they are going to be responsible voters who are going to refuse to be bought or to be intimidated.
Yes, siyamuzwa kakhulu ke ubaba Masocha ngosikamfundo Elliot Masocha lapho yakhuluma sibili ukuthi kumele kwenziwe eZimbabwe ngesikhathi sokhetho kumbe ungakayenzi ukhetho lokho voter education lokunye okutshiyeneyo ukuthi hayi kumelanga kugconwe izek ukuthi iyo phela evimbileyo. Hayi uthi akumelanga ube njalo. Uthi okumele kwenzakale ukuthi abantu baphumele egcekeni bayenze abakwenzayo ngokuthula bazama ukuthi balungise konke okuhluphayo. Uthi ke Marvellous siye kubaba uMavaza sike sizwe ke ngamafutshane sesalule imizuzu nje emlutshwana. So qhubeka ke Marvellous khonapho ke umbuzo uMavaza ukuthi ofisa ukumbuza khona. Bona Zanu uMavaza engani mic yakhe iyavaleka kodwa hayi singaqhubeka Marvellous.
Aha, Dr. Mavaza manzwa zvataurwa naProfessor Masocha vari kutaura ivo pamusoro pemafambisirwo akaitwa idzo sarudzo idzi uyezve kuti imi sebato reZANU-PF hamufaniri kuti hakwanga kusina nyaya yatingati kutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu kana kutengwa kwemavhoti nekuti zvinhu zvaionekwa padandemutande.
Ava Masocha vatirasike zvishoma shoma kana makatarisa vanhu vaiuya kurali vakanga vasingauye nekuti vanga vachipiwa chikafu, asi vaiti kana rali yapera isi tozoona kuti vanhu havangadzokere kumba vasina chavakabata. Ndo chivanhu chedu, ukashanya tinokupa kana chimuti kuti bata udzokere kumba. Saka taipa vanhu chibage, taipa vanhu raisi nehembe kuti endai henyu kumba muchifara, asi hatina kuti haimuzotora hembe. Mazowana hembe mapedza kuuya. Panhu zvandingakuda kutaura hangu sisi mavhundu zvekuti tikatarisa zvaitika panguva yese iyi tinoona kuti vamonzora vachiriwo leader of the opposition in parliament. Vachine 38 votes as an opposition member, 38 seats avo, CCC ne 19. Kune independent mungechete Temba Mliswa ne true disability. ZANU-PF 150. So tikaenda ku percentage of course we'll see plus vatinozowedzera vaya vasingavhoterwe. ZANU-PF ine 181, CCC noramba 19, MDCA under Monzora ine 68. So in other words tine 270 seats dzagovanwa. Saka vamonzora hongo vachiri, he is still the leader of opposition in parliament. Saka what you can say about taona kuti vamonzora munhu anogona kutamba politics dzake, anogona kuronga zvinhu zvake akagara pasi nepfungwa, akaona kuti akadzinga vose anosara asina vanhu muparliament, akadzinga vaanokwanisa kudzinga kuti agosara nevaanokwanisa kumupa majority as opposition. Izvi zvinomubatsira kuti anoramba ari entitled to election financial help inobva government, and zvinomubatsira kuti anokwanisa kuzounganidza vanhu vake mazuva ari kutevera kuti vazokwanisa kuzovhoterwa 2023. Pakupedzesera ndoda kuti titi kune ve-CCC aiwa mukai mugombeza vamakarara umu, nekuti hamuna chamahwina, hamuna chamaita. Kana muchida kuti nyika yedu ive democratically challenging, ivai makabatana as opposition parties. Isusu seZANU-PF we are happy. Kana mukasplita 10 times we are very happy. It's our advantage as the party, it's our advantage as ZANU-PF. Nekuti kutonga tinongoramba tichitonga kana vanhu vachitida vachitivhotera, asi mukaramba muchiconfuse vanhu muti nhasi muri CCC mangwana muri ABC, hamuna chamuri kubatsira. There's no contribution you are doing to our democracy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mavaza. I think on that note, we wish to thank our guests this evening, Dr. Simba Mavaza of Zanu PF, Mr. Norest Marara of MTC Alliance, Mr. Tawanda Dzokora of Citizens Coalition for Change, and Professor Elliot Masocha, a political commentator. And signing off from Maryland, this is Gibbs Dube saying good night, Zimbabwe. Marvellous.
And I'm Marvellous Mhlanga Nyahuye saying have a very good night, and thank you to all the guests that managed to join us, and also thank you to the viewers and listeners.
Good night.